Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode here on Sticks and Bones with your ghost hosts, Chelsea and Ten. Hi, Ten. How are you?
I am doing good. It's a gloomy day out, but it's a good week. It's been a good week.
It has been a good week, but it's also been like weirdly really cold on the East Coast. And I'm sorry for all the garden girls that are waiting for a garden update, but there has been no gardening happening.
I know. We've been getting frost warnings to the point where I'm like, I can't, in good faith, plant new seedlings. I can't do that to them. I can't watch them die.
No, I know. Well, I have some seeds going in my house. I'm actually growing 6 tomato plants indoors, but I'm waiting for the frost to be done. I'm waiting for the frost. So they said in our area the end of April into May. So hopefully we can have some Garden Girl updates again because I know everyone really loved that and I was like so shook by it. So we will give updates when updates are to be had, but no updates today.
No updates. No updates. I'm actually really terrified about the beetles again. So I've been having some nightmares about the plagues of Egypt. So that's where I'm at this year.
Scarred from the Beatles from last year. I agree. All I kept thinking about was like Beatles with the parasites, like that meme that's online.
And I just think about the fact that like I had to bury my pumpkin because he got last year and
My
I
God.
have not been the same since.
I don't think you should tell anyone when you plant a pumpkin.
Oh,
Maybe it got evil-eyed.
dude, he really took one for the team, man. I
Maybe.
was in mourning. I almost gave him full funeral rights.
You have to
Like
put a Nazar hanging from his stem.
put it in like the bucket that I had, like the big like pot. So like the beetle maybe the Nazar will also deter the beetles, you know? I don't know.
Don't even joke. I actually might do that out there.
I know.
I plan on getting another statue for Hecate that I want to put outside because plot twist, if you're new here on Sticks and Bones, altars were actually outside in the ancient world. And that is my dream. That is my goal. I don't like having an altar indoors. I would love to light my incense to the gods outside.
I know.
Outside.
I
So
think I might do that.
I think I'm gonna do that. I think Hecate needs her own garden. Um, so I think I'm gonna do that this year. I think I'm gonna put her outside. See how it
Mm.
works. Maybe she'll protect it from the beetles.
I don't know.
Get to
Sometimes,
work.
sometimes if a beetle like got and like died, I would leave his carcass in the garden to warn off his other friends.
Tell
Go
your
home,
friends.
tell your friends, tell your queen. I ain't
This
playing.
is the Sicilian message right there.
Tell your friends, tell your queen. I'm not impressed.
Yeah, I will do it again.
Tell your queen I work for a different queen.
For real. Anyway, well, we do have a very amazing episode happening today. We are
Yeah.
doing Wrath of the Gods today, but we are doing Hades and Persephone because obviously, who else would we start with?
This is an episode of Sticks and Bones versus you guys. Chelsea and
Yes.
I are each coming to the table, coming to the altar, if you will, and we have prepared some of the most obscure myths, whether
Yes.
you know it or whether you don't. And we are proposing who got it worse in mythology per god. And you, the good ghouls of Sticks and Bones, are going to be voting on who had it worse.
Yes. Also, I would like to know our own gods are pitting us against each other. So if you think the Greek gods don't have a wrathful side, no, I'm just kidding. But like, what happens to the loser? Do you think I'll have to get flogged?
Maybe we'll bury you out in my backyard like they did to the Vestal Virgins. I don't know.
A sacrifice that needs to be made. Hades, take her back.
Here you go.
I know I said that last time we were talking about this idea. I was like, our own gods are pitting us against each other,
Mm-hmm.
and the public gets to decide.
I know. So after everybody votes, we will make a laurel crown, just like the Olympians, just like
Uh-huh.
Apollo, and we will place it on the winner.
We will. And
It's
the
it's
person.
Olympic season, man. You know, Paris 2024 is coming up.
That's right. So anyway, before we get into our myths and stories, like now I'm scared. I don't really like to be a competitive person. I'm very like passive where I'm like, whatever.
That's
I,
fascinating because if I'm up, I'm in the game. I am
oh no, no.
I'm
I'm
so
in
competitive.
I'm in the game. I'm a silent killer. Like I always like to let people think that, but you can ask my parents. Like when we're playing board games, I'm not super competitive, but I will play to kill. Like in my own brain, I'm like a ninja. I just show up out of nowhere where you're like, oh, Chelsea's not competitive. And then I'm like, I bought the boardwalk plot off of Monopoly. And you're like, oh, fuck.
Bang, bang, bitch.
He wasn't kidding. I like to put my money where my mouth is. I don't like to talk a big talk. I like to put my money where my mouth is, and we'll see where the cards rest. I should
Now,
have done divination to see who was going to win.
now, before we get into housekeeping, in Monopoly, since you brought it up, it's a great game.
Yes.
I will not play it with my family, but
Same. My dad is the worst. I cannot play Monopoly with my dad. I will punch him in the mouth.
I can't play it with my mom. It becomes literally like a war of allegiance. And in your family, I want to know, is it death before trading or what? How do you
Let
do
me
it?
tell you something. I am a proponent of trading because it makes the game interesting. My dad will hoard every single piece and card. And I'm like, this is like, you're a loser. Sorry if you play that way, 10, but like that's loser odd behavior
No,
where it's like,
I
put your money where your mouth is and trade with me. What are you scared?
I am a business girl.
Same.
So I'm playing chess, not checkers. What is a hoarding situation going to do except, and my mom plays this way, she will have and hoard everything, mortgage the fuck out of everything
Yeah.
just so she doesn't have to trade. And you know what? It works to an extent, but you piss everybody off.
That's why I won't play Monopoly with my dad because he does not abide by Monopoly like
Mm-hmm.
rules. He will hoard every single pot. Me and my brother are like, sell the things that you're not you like. Why would you keep them? And guess what? It does work out in his favor because then he owns every single piece of real estate, and I'm like, I get nothing. So yeah, I won't play Monopoly
No.
anymore.
Mm-mm.
I'm done. Like I'm a business girl. Like I will make a trade.
Let's talk. Let's go to the table.
Let's talk like civilized humans. No.
I'm coming up to the table. Here's my offer. Hi, sharks.
No, my dad is like capitalist king over there where he just buy every piece of land. Like it just doesn't give anything. You
He
can't even
said,
talk
that
to him.
Louisiana purchase, that's mine.
Yeah, you can't even talk to him. He's like, no, trades off. I'm like, you didn't even hear my no, no
No,
offer.
trades off. It's like, okay, simmer down on the manifest destiny for a hot minute and hear me fucking out.
Yeah, shut the hell up. So anyway, Monopoly's a sore spot for me. I won't play it.
Same, I won't either. We got like the digital version that you can play
No.
like on the Switch. And Kevin and I will not play because I will get too competitive and I'll cry.
Yeah, Monopoly's a terrible and it runs for hours. Anyway, okay, we got to move on, but like it's a
We got to
terrible
move
game.
on.
Anyway, okay, before we dive into the wrath of the gods today and we get pit against each other like two gladiators, let's talk about some housekeeping. So, today, when the podcast launches May 6th, for Patreon, you're getting this whole podcast a week early. So, hey guys, we'll talk about that in a second. We are dropping actually our new full moon collection. You heard it right. We are full moon girlies. We use the full moon to manifest, bring in wealth, abundance, new opportunities. The new moon we obviously use to honor Hecate and release, but we're in our wealthy, luxurious, abundance girl era where we want to bring all the opportunities to our front door. So we're doing a full moon collection. We have a candle, we have a bath salt coming out, which I love doing bath rituals on the full moon. That is like what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Light my candle, light some incense, pour some luxurious bath salt,
Ugh, love it.
a good book, a glass of wine. Ooh,
Ooh,
like for the girls.
ooh.
And we also have the moon dust elixir coming back, which is one of my personal favorites to enhance your full moon workings. And so that's coming out at 12 p.m. Eastern time. We have limited quantities of that per usual. And yeah, I think that's it. I think that's it. That's coming to the metaphysical store. So we're really excited about it. Set your alarms and everything is going to be super beautiful. Also, the full moon candles feature a 10. Do you want to describe the pendant? Because I forgot already.
That's fine. The full moon is going to feature a lunula, which is, you can think of it as like a crescent moon pendant. So the charm holds the crescent moon, so it makes kind of like that shape hanging down. And it is what the ancient pagan Romans actually would have had their daughters wear.
Beautiful.
Um, for protection as they grew up. Young boys, they actually had the bola, so it was a circle. But for young girls, we think that as archaeologists, that young girls actually wore this for protection, and it was in honor of the moon goddess Luna.
I think that's absolutely amazing and gorgeous. And it's a pendant that you can wear
Mm-hmm.
and use. So that's going to be in the full moon candles. So
Yes.
we're excited. 12 p.m. Eastern time dropping. Anyway, 10, is there anything that we need to say before we start this episode and get into the wrath of Hades and Persephone?
Oh, we got a good one today. And yes, we actually do have a sponsor today. So
Who's
buckle
our
up, everybody,
sponsor?
because we have sponsors now.
We got sponsored?
We have sponsors. So buckle up, everybody, because boy, do I have a great deal to talk to you about. Well, you guys, we are sponsored by none other than Sticks and Bones with Chelsea and 10. That's right.
Wow. How much money did that cost us to sponsor today's episode?
Well, Chelsea and 10 never fucking sleep, and we have to have our fingers in all of the pots. So, if you would like more Chelsea and 10 content, you can join us over at Sticks and Bones Patreon for $10 a month in the underworld. Come along with us, and you will get extra content, early access to podcasts. Shout out to Patreon with you guys right now because you're getting this early, and other incredible topics. We took a deep dive on angel numbers. Where do they come from? Why are they all the fucking same? And in April, we talked about the demon Asmodeus. We've talked about a little bit of nun possession over there. And since we are talking about the good king and queen of the underworld today, we actually took a deep dive into the plutonion at the site of Eleusis, which was seen as a temple to both Hades and Persephone that has ties with that mystery cult there. So if you want more content, come along with us and join us back in the underworld on our Patreon.
I love that. And just to add on top of the Sticks and Bones ad, they're so nice to sponsor us today. Like
I
shout out.
know.
Shout
Shout
out to the
out.
girlies at Sticks and Bones. We have a ton of backlogged content and our Patreon syncs with Spotify. So if you actually look up on Spotify, Sticks and Bones Patreon, it will come up on Spotify. So if you're a Spotify girly like myself, you can
Mm-hmm.
listen to all of our extra content on Spotify. Like we upload audio files only and it uploads onto Spotify and syncs it there as well. So if you're like, I need more episodes, we have a whole backlog of content. So if you're like new and like haven't been on Patreon yet, highly suggest you check it out. We have great things. So shout out Sticks and Bones. And thanks, 10, for introducing our sponsor today.
Absolutely. I feel like a news anchor over here.
You looked like it. You were like, I gotta get my notes.
I need to like swerve in breaking news.
Patreon. Okay. Today we are talking about the wrath of Hades and Persephone. And I am going to go first.
Yes. What do you got to the
I
table?
am here to tell y'all about the myth of Sisyphus. And some of
Mm.
you might know this myth, but for those of you that don't, buckle up because it is just, a ride. So you're like, Chelsea, who is Sisyphus? Okay. This particular myth has to do with the wrath of Hades, but also Zeus.
Mm.
So I'm going to give some background.
You got a twofer.
Sisyphus is known as a king of Corinth. So he is someone who has a position of power. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
he's not just like some Joe Schmo off the street. So let's just keep that in mind. His crimes against the gods, and yes, I said crimes. I'm pleading my case here,
Mm-hmm.
began with Zeus.
Mm. That's a bold move.
Right, which is the one I probably would not want to commit the crime against first.
Oh.
No thanks. That man would just chuck a lightning bolt at your head. So,
Yes.
Asopus, a river god whose father was Poseidon, was looking for his daughter, Aegina. I had to see how to pronounce that name.
Yeah.
Aegina is how you say it, who
Mm-hmm.
disappeared.
Mm.
Sisyphus promised to tell Asopus what happened to Aegina if the river god would create an internal spring for Sisyphus's kingdom, Corinth.
Yep.
Once Asopus created the endless source of fresh water, Sisyphus named Zeus as Aegina's abductor. Enraged, Asopus went after Zeus until
Uh-huh.
the god held him off with his thunderbolts. He was like, "Get out of my house. Leave me alone. I'm king of the gods."
Yeah.
So he retreats, right? Because he's obviously a lesser god. He's retreating away.
Yes.
Zeus did in fact take Aegina.
Oh. Oh, okay.
He kidnapped her.
Okay. I thought this man was just like throwing a red herring out.
No, Zeus actually did it. But to punish Sisyphus for his betrayal, because obviously, why would you turn Zeus in, right? He's doing something, I guess it's like beep boop bop. Mortals look the other way.
I'm blind in my right eye.
Suddenly, I can't see. It reminds me of like the Italian American community in New York City when the mob used to be heavy there and they would be like, murder? What murder? He didn't kill nobody. And it's like they saw him do it in cold blood down the street.
Like, I'm blind in my right eye and I'm 40% blind in my left.
Yeah, I'm
So,
not getting in trouble with the mob. Are you crazy?
yeah, bye.
Anyway, not to compare Zeus to the mob, but like king of the gods, I'm turning the other way. So Zeus was obviously pissed that Sisyphus had turned him in. So he sent Thanatos after him. He was like, now you're going to die. I am getting Thanatos to come after you. Sisyphus manages to outwit Thanatos. He asks Thanatos, and I am condensing this story, to look into his amphora, and Thanatos winds up trapped in it. Sisyphus is able to trap him. Okay, so this mortal man, has all the audacity. Why is it always a man? What are we doing? And I want to remind everybody, Thanatos works for Hades. Okay, so Zeus is like, I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna kill him. Thanatos, fetch. He gets trapped in a jar, basically.
This man bottled death. And was like, have a nice day.
He did. So anyway, Thanatos found himself a prisoner in Sisyphus's house. And eventually Ares comes along and he's able to set Thanatos free. He's the god of war. So imagine the god of war just like, walking down the street and he's like, oh, Thanatos is in a jar.
My brother in Hades, what are you doing?
Yeah, also Thanatos, what are you doing, man? Come on. So anyway, Ares sets Thanatos free. And Sisyphus, he sends Thanatos to Sisyphus. He's like, all right, go back to doing what you're doing. However, Sisyphus manages to elude his fate of death. Okay. So he winds up, before he descends to Hades, because he knows, okay, Thanatos is coming to me, he instructed his wife, Merope, not to bury him, give him a funeral feast, or perform any sacrifices to King Hades or Queen Persephone. And to ensure he didn't have a coin for entry into the underworld. So he knows he's going to die. And he's like, hey, Merope, don't do any of the shit that we need to do to make sure I get into the underworld. I have a plan.
I am going to cause the longest backup in human possibility.
Yes. Okay.
I am going to be an absolute problem.
He's trying to scam the system. So Sisyphus goes to the underworld because he died. He arrives at the kingdom of Hades.
Mm-hmm.
And he's basically the restless dead because he doesn't have a coin. He's
Correct.
had no proper burial rites, no offerings to the gods.
Nope.
So it is said that Queen Persephone has had his favor because he appeals. He's able to get an appeal with Queen Persephone. Sisyphus tells her, right?
Mm-hmm.
He has no right to be here. He's one of the unburied. He had no fare for Charon, and he should have been abandoned on the far side of the Styx. Sisyphus argued that his wife neglected his funeral ceremonies and sacrifices and is setting a bad example for other widows in the community. So he's blaming it on his wife, even though he told her don't do those things. He's like, and she's going to set a bad example for those other women that are watching her grieve me. Because he's a king, remember that. So his people are going to follow him and what his wife is doing. But he instructed her not to do those things.
Yeah, dude, if I was his wife, I'd be like, you're writing this down. I need a paper trail.
She probably was just not thinking. She probably trusted her husband. Anyway, so it gets worse. Sisyphus then pleads to Persephone for permission to return to the surface of the earth for just 3 days. So if you're pleading to Persephone, she has to go to Hades and is like, hey,
yeah,
I need you to let him back up. And if it's one thing we know about Hades, he don't like to do those things. And he doesn't like people that cheat death. That's his number one offense. Okay. So he gets to go up for 3 days. This brief time would allow for him, this is his agreement with Persephone, to arrange for his funeral, to punish his wife for neglecting her duties, and to teach her respect to the king and queen of the underworld because she didn't leave a sacrifice for his death based on his instructions. So Persephone's like, yeah, you go back, you tell your wife off and say, where's my sacrifice? And you need funeral rites.
Yes.
Persephone falls for his pleas and allowed Sisyphus to go home. Yeah. Sisyphus, of course, had no intention to return to the world of darkness.
Nope.
He reneged on his promise to descend again in 3 days. So he was supposed to go back in 3 days, and he didn't. And at this point, we have to assume that Hades knows that this guy is playing him.
Yeah.
Because if Hades wanted you back into the underworld, a god would make sure your ass is back in the seat in the underworld.
Absolutely. And Hades knows eventually, what he knows mortals. He knows them like the back of his hand. He is like, you know what? I'll let you go because I already know what you're going to do because you're a human mind. I already know. But go ahead.
We could talk about this after, but I wonder if Persephone knew too.
Could be.
Because I can't imagine her being that they see what goes on. Anyway, so he doesn't go back in 3 days. And so he lives many more years until old age claims him at last. So he lives out his life and he dies of old age. But if we all know Hades, he plays the long game. So he was waiting for this man to die. So Sisyphus dies. He's back in the underworld for his offenses to both Zeus and Hades. If you're unfamiliar with the underworld, we all go through a judgment where you get judged on like, are you going to Tartarus or are you going somewhere else?
Yeah.
He gets sentenced to Tartarus because
Oof.
he not only offended Zeus and outwitted Thanatos in that instance, he also did it to Persephone, which is Hades' wife.
Mm-mm.
Sisyphus was condemned to eternal punishment in Tartarus.
Yeah, he was.
Because with Hades, the one thing that you will always see in mythology and with him, you cannot cheat death. You will not cheat him. You will pay the piper. When it's your time to die, you are coming to the underworld.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, get your coin, leave the sacrifices to the gods, but you will respect death because like that's his realm.
Hades plays to win.
Yeah, so he played the long game here. I just got the chills as I'm talking about this. I'm like, oh my God. So, as a punishment for his crimes, Hades makes Sisyphus roll a huge boulder endlessly up a steep hill in Tartarus. But because Hades is really clever, he enchants the boulder into rolling away from Sisyphus before it reaches the top. So this man's eternal punishment is to roll a boulder up a mountain and it will never get to the top because it's always going to roll down. And he spends every waking minute and moment having to do that in Tartarus. And it's like, for what purpose? So it actually has been coined a term. Any pointless activities are sometimes described as Sisyphean. So if you're doing something that's pointless, you're like, oh, that's Sisyphean. Like, why would I do that? So this man is now known for pointless activity, pointless. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how his name has been taken out. His name is not remembered for the king that he was. His name is now remembered for crossing the gods, trying to outwit them. And now his name's associated with being pointless, a pointless activity. The maddening nature of this punishment was reserved for Sisyphus due to his hubristic belief that his cleverness surpassed that of Hades himself.
Mm-hmm.
So, my takeaway from this is, and we always say this in Greek religion, you cannot have an ego and think that you're going to outsmart the gods.
Whew.
That
No.
is like almost every myth story in my eyes is like the big ones that we remember is always people trying to outsmart the gods. And in this case, this man, and they let him think that they did, right? Like Zeus was
Yeah.
like, okay, you outsmarted me with Thanatos. Sure, you outsmarted me, mortal. Sure, you tricked my wife. You can outlive the rest of your life, but they're always going to get you in the end.
Yeah. The truth is always going to come out, really. You
No.
can't hide behind your kingdom.
No, and they're always going to be 10 steps ahead of you. So like when I was reading this, I was like the audacity of this man.
Yeah. And, he really thought power was going to save him ultimately. But remember, we all die the same. We all end up the same. It's still us and the gods. Like, you
Yeah,
ain't gonna beat them.
he tricked multiple gods, even that lesser god Asopus up top. He lied to him. Well, he didn't really
Mm-hmm.
lie to him, but he made him say, I want an endless source of water in my kingdom. And that's the only way I'll tell you something. Like
No,
he tries to strike these deals, and it's like now you're remembered not for your legacy in your kingdom. You're remembered for terrible things you did.
that's so interesting that he's like a seedy businessman.
Yes.
He's
Yes.
making quick deals that he's writing checks his ass can't cash.
100%. So, the big takeaway is like you can't you can't have a big ego, and the gods are the gods and we are mortals, and there is a line, right?
Yes.
We are not equal. It is them, it
Mm-hmm.
is us. And we cannot cheat death. Like death comes for everybody, and you can't run from Thanatos. Maybe you
Yeah.
can. I don't know. You catch him in a jar.
Yeah.
So that was my myth. I just think it's really crazy that he has to spend an eternity of punishment pushing a boulder up a hill for it to fall down. And like he can't stop.
You can't cheat your way or make a deal out of that.
Like that's so can you imagine pushing a boulder up a hill for it to not reach the top and it roll down again and you just have to keep doing it over
And
and
you
over
can't
again?
die. You're already dead.
You're in Tartarus forever. Forever. Like I think Hades really popped off with that one. Like that was just like that's a crazy thing to do to somebody.
That's like, how did these gods create these types of punishments? Like, do they just have like punishments sitting on a bench
Like
and
who
they're
thinks of
like,
that?
I don't know.
I don't know. I read that and I was like immediately afraid.
Immediately, no.
Immediately when it's my time to die, I go in peace. I'm not gonna try to trap Thanatos in a jar.
Don't do
Come
it.
on, get in my jar. Anyway,
Nope.
It's like the white truck outside, and it's like, there's candy in here with the sign. Like, was Thanatos just like, oh, let me take a look at this jar? And he's automatically trapped in it? Like,
He's god of the people, and he fell for it.
that's so sad.
I know.
That's so mean. Anyway,
Why are you trying to do that to peaceful death, man?
yeah, leave Thanatos alone. What the hell?
So
Um,
I am coming to everybody with my plea. Hear ye,
okay,
hear ye.
I'm here for it.
Welcome to the scene. We're talking about Persephone and Theseus.
I almost picked this myth, and thank God I didn't because you wound up doing it.
Truly, like some of the OG fuckboys. Like,
Oh yeah, there's OG fuckboys in this. We have the CD salesman Sisyphus, and then we have the OG fuckboys in this myth.
like frat bros, fuckboys, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
Like, ugh.
yeah.
So, of course, there's a little bit of backstory. And of course, many may recognize the name of Theseus, right? A lot of yeses in the ancient world. And he's famed for slaying the Minotaur, who, of course, was the offspring of of a god. Curse. A really son of King of Minos on Crete. He lived in the labyrinth. Remember, he was munching on the Athenians every so often. And of course, he's Ariadne's brother. And of course, with Ariadne's help, he kills the Minotaur, and Theseus leaves Crete with Ariadne. They share relations. And then he goes to her the next morning and leaves her on an island in the Cyclades.
Love
Okay? Of
that for her. That's so
course,
kind.
this is when Dionysus finds her and he says, "You're the one for me." They get married. He gives her a crown of stars. So, ladies, do not settle for anything less.
I can't. That story. I want to talk about that story of Dionysus one day because what a gem.
What a gem of a man.
I have to say, shout out Dionysus. He's one of actually my favorite gods in the Greek pantheon. Anyway, continue.
So, Theseus, upon his return from slaying the Minotaur, bada bing, bada boom, things happen. He becomes king of Athens. Okay. Moving on. Perseus, he rules a tribe of horsemen in Lapis, which is in Thessaly, and he hears of Theseus's great achievements, and he kind of wants to go against him. He's like, Theseus, my guy, you're the best of the best, but my ego knows no bounds. So I am going to, try and pull one over on you, because if I pull one over on the best, I become the best. Egos galore, really. So it's really like a big like dick swinging competition at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Is
like
my horse is bigger than your horse
why are
kind of
people
deal?
like this? Like,
I
just
don't
chill.
know.
Just be chill.
So accordingly, he makes off with some of Theseus's cattle or oxen. And of course, Theseus pursues him, and the two were set to fight each other. Instead, in a mutual show of respect, they lay down their arms and they vowed to become lifelong friends and brothers in arms. And according to Plutarch's Lives, Perseus was the first to offer peace and pay Theseus for any damage. And of course, Theseus released him from any liability. Just broing around in the ancient world.
Just
Like,
wrestling. Throwing each other into furniture. Might be a little gay for that. That's
just
okay.
like they want to fight, just kiss. Like, I don't know, just like enemies to lovers kind of deal.
Literally, like, just do it. It's fine. Whatever, man.
Whatever. Just is this the OG enemies to lovers? I don't know, but
That's what I was thinking. They're sharing a bed at the inn at one point.
there's only one bed.
There's only one bed and they have to share it.
It's 2 a.m. We just got to that point. Okay. Anywho, Theseus is married, right? Perseus marries Hippodamia, who's also a princess. So both mans broing around. They got a bromance. They're both married. Cool. Theseus marries Phaedra, who is the sister of Ariadne. Just when you think men couldn't get it worse.
Yeah, no, men in this myth, trash them all.
So Phaedra, in an interesting myth of hers, she falls in love with her stepson. And there's a whole ass story there, which ultimately really ends tragically because Phaedra, Spark No Edition, says her stepson tried to sexually assault her. So Theseus prays to his father, who is Poseidon in many myths, saying, "I need you to off this guy." Poseidon's like, gotcha, son. Kills the offspring. Phaedra then offs herself. So it's really just a whole lot of much ado about nothing. Like,
See y'all in Hades.
see y'all on the Styx, man.
See ya pushing a boulder up and down the hill.
So ultimately, both wives will die. pretty young due to unforeseen circumstances of mythology. Gotcha. Okay. And as these two are sons of gods, Theseus being the offspring of Poseidon and Persephone being the offspring of Zeus,
Shocker.
they decide
Gonna add my commentary. Every time you say a son of Zeus, let's take a tally.
which one.
Which one?
So, being the semi divine bros that they are, they decide amongst themselves, we deserve the best of the best, the creme de la creme. Almost saying that because they're divine, they deserve more than just your average mortal woman, would you say?
Uh-oh.
So they pick two new brides. So, of course, Theseus, he picks 13-year-old Helen of Troy.
I honestly feel so bad for Helen of Troy.
This girl got it so bad.
And she was 13.
Some say 12, some say 13, but like
Still bad.
that cusp.
God
And
forbid it's a 1 year difference.
God forbid. So at this point, she's in Sparta, and they both kidnap her, right? Perseus is like, you know what, you're doing this, I'm in. Whose car are we taking? Kind of deal. He's like, all right, let's go. Let's get her. They get her. She gets got once again. But because she's too young to wed, they give her to Theseus's mother in Attica until the time comes that she is eligible to be married. Okay, wow, how nice of them. So Perseus takes this a step further. His brother in arms, he just got the most beautiful woman in the world. So Perseus has to, take it one step further. So he picks none other than Persephone to wed.
Oh, jeez.
And
oh, no.
Of course, why were these two women selected? Well, both had divine fathers. Of course, Helen of Troy and Persephone are offsprings of Zeus. Mm-hmm. So immediately they're like, we got it. Boys, we got it. So at this time in history, Persephone's already married to Hades. She's already queen of the underworld. And to these boys, it's really just an unwanted nuisance. It's really just an unwanted speed bump. They're going to go about it no matter what. So they're both like, all right, let's go. They both go down into the underworld and they get past Charon and other what I would call kind of checkpoints of the underworld that you have to pass.
Like
Cerberus. They also got past Cerberus.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Cerberus and Charon just let them go. And this is where the story really begins to kind of stray because we have certain accounts telling different things. So one account actually has Hades already aware of what's going on.
Yeah, of course.
Saying, welcome. We should have a feast in your honor.
Come steal my wife.
Come look at her. She's beautiful, isn't she? And he sets up chairs for them in a welcoming feast. Hades points to some special chairs and or thrones to the men known as the chairs of forgetfulness or the thrones of oblivion, as one would forget everything once they sat upon them. So the two guys, they sit in, but when they sit, all of a sudden, snakes suddenly materialized, fastening around their legs until they couldn't move. And both men are stuck to these chairs where they are tortured relentlessly by the Furies and others and really just witness the utter wrath of the king of the underworld personally. Now,
you did try to go steal his wife. And then, I'm sorry, if Hades ever said to a mortal, come, let's have a feast for you, I would run the other way because what the hell?
I'd be like, you know what? I left the stove on.
I'm so sorry. I have a doctor's appointment.
I gotta go.
I gotta go to the dentist.
So, of course, mythology is continuing on. And when Heracles needs to bring up Cerberus for one of his labors, he comes across both of these men in distress. And it's unclear about how long it has been that they've just been sat and tortured. So Heracles is able to free Theseus. But in most cases, when he goes to Persephone, the earth shakes and he's unable to free him. Some stories also then say that he was eventually freed by Heracles, and others say that he just ultimately remained in the underworld, and other sources make no further mention of him. He's just kind of lost in the underworld. And another version of the myth, Theseus and Persephone rest on rocks on the outskirts of the underworld. But when they wake up from a nap, they found that they couldn't rise and were actually attached to the rocks. Suddenly, they were beset by a screaming band of horrible looking Furies with snakes protruding from their hair and whips in their hands. Theseus and Perseus were then taken prisoner and condemned to live in half darkness as eternal punishment for their plan to take possession of the queen of the underworld. But in another take, some tell how it was the anger of Persephone at the impudence of both pairs of heroes, which called for and actually caused Hades to confine both of these heroes in the underworld. The same tale shows the benevolence of Persephone, who actually agreed that Heracles could release Theseus from his shackles. And she actually greeted Heracles as a brother of hers because they are simply half siblings.
Mm-hmm.
And she's saying, yes, you can take Theseus because he was just kind of along for the ride, but Perseus is mine forever and you can't have him. So it was Persephone who convinced Hades to let Heracles both take Cerberus and Theseus with him, but that she would have domain over Perseus for the rest of eternity.
That's right. Put a leash on him, make him bark.
Walk you
Woof.
like a dog.
Bow wow. Um, yeah, not surprised. I mean, that's pretty dumb. I don't know why you would ever you, and they're demigods, correct?
Yeah, so they, since their
So
dads are gods, yeah.
it's so weird that Poseidon or Zeus just didn't even step in. Like, you even care about your kids?
No, they're like, your uncle's going to take care of you. Have a nice day. You're going to learn.
That's scary. Not Uncle Hades. Bro, no.
But it's interesting because scholars looking at this myth actually find that this peculiar torment of Perseus, where he's condemned to like sit in a chair and be tormented forever, like truly like electric chair kind of style,
Mhm.
actually has some anthropological significance. That the motif of the seated position was distinctive of ancient manners of punishments and funeral rites. And it symbolized the annihilation not only of those who were found guilty, but also of those living who, overcome with sorrow, consciously chose to make themselves similar to the deceased, just as Theseus chose to share in his brother in arms' torment, according to mythic sources. So, because the ancients, when you were burying somebody, when you were reading eulogies many times, more often than not, the corpse would be propped up into like a 90-degree sitting position with like your
Mhm.
legs outstretched. So, because he is seated similar to a corpse, that is his eternal punishment, is to live forever but be treated in full annihilation of oneself.
You
That's
know,
like a mind game. That's a
I
mind fuck.
not to harp on this one point. When people got mad at us because we said Hades and Persephone, I'm sorry, when Hades has a wrathful side, y'all didn't read mythology today. I'm so sorry. Like, I'll never forget that. I know I harp on this, and I know
Yes.
I don't care what people say, but I truly go back to that one season where we got so much shit because we
Mhm.
talked about Hades' wrathful side. See, my wrathful side's coming out, and I said, and people were looking at us like we're crazy. I'm like, I didn't make this myth up. We just shared two myths today about the wrath of the underworld, and there was more that I could have talked about. I had to
Oh,
pick
God,
one.
there's so much more.
I had to literally pick one. So I'm just saying, don't trick his wife, don't try to kidnap her, and don't try to cheat death, and don't have a big ego.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, one had to push a boulder up for the rest of eternity. God knows he's probably still doing it.
He's still doing.
And
I was thinking about that all night last night. I couldn't sleep. I'm like, imagine rolling a bowler up a hill for eternal punishment for it to fall back down and keep going.
and then the other is forced to sit in a chair surrounded by snakes, being tormented and tortured by the Furies. And it's almost like it's like a mental kind of
It's a
like
mental thing. Both
it's
of
a
them are.
it's a mental loop of absolute mental torture.
I'm good on that.
So the moral of this
I
story
work for this guy. That's what I thought. I was like, I work for this man.
So the moral of this story is one to respect the boundaries that are laid out by gods. Like if you decide to challenge them, whether you are semi-divine or not, it does not matter
You know what
because
I
you're going
just
to
thought
get
of?
caught.
That meme with the Thomas the Tank Engine face, and it's like, you dare challenge me, mere mortal. face. Well, we have to post it for this episode.
We were gonna. Like, it is the absolute hubris and audacity that once again deserves eternal punishment, in my opinion. But it also comes back to power. And this is kind of like my 2 cents. It comes back to power and those who challenge it. And what I really find interesting is that in the myth, Persephone really seems to be working from behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
She is really the one pulling the strings, if you will. She's not outright, for many myths, the one who entices the heroes to sit. She is simply an object of their thoughts, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what she's seen as, an object once again. But she is showcasing her power elsewhere. So much so that while Hades may offer chairs and a feast to the men, Persephone may have been the one whose powers struck their minds, as seen in Theogony, where she is classified as death personified and actually impairs the mind of mortals and brings them to forgetfulness.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm good on that.
immediately no. And I find this interesting for a number of reasons. But here, if she is orchestrating their punishment,
Mm-hmm.
it could be from the fact that they only saw her as their property. Yet she is a queen and a divine one at that, once again, challenging her position next to her husband.
Mm-hmm.
These men don't see her as the queen. These men do not see her as her position, as next to her husband. They see her as theirs,
An object.
an object to be won and taken. And I also find this interesting because, of course, myths can be interpreted and reinterpreted throughout millennia to make sense to the individual reader. And of course, because I'm married, I had to put on that cap when I thought about this
Mm-hmm.
myth and when I was reading it. And I thought about if a similar thing should happen, either men are harassing me or someone tries to separate Kev and I. And it's interesting because for some myths, there's many interpretations that see this as something Persephone set up. She was the one furious, and her husband allowed her to showcase her power through him. And I thought about this, that she was given the first punch and
Mm-hmm.
then he finished them off. She was
Mm-hmm.
allowed to decide their fate, and he came in and put on the facade for her. And I thought about that with Kevin, and I was like, if anything were to happen, he would let me figure out what I wanted to do first. If I needed to throw hands, he'd let me throw hands and then finish the job. But he would always go to me first and let me decide because I was the one who was hurt.
Right.
I was the one who was offended.
Right.
And it's
That makes sense.
interesting that Persephone persuaded her husband to show no mercy because she had been the one who was offended in her house.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about that, if you go for somebody's wife, you're going for her whole house. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just one person you're offending the whole kingdom. And ultimately, in some myths, of course, the one I just mentioned, she is the one who decides that Heracles should be allowed certain things. She's the one who decided Sisyphus should be allowed, a little bit more extra time in the mortal realm. She is the one who decides, you know what, Orpheus should have another shot with his wife. She is the one who decides, and she is the one who sways.
Well, that's how it goes, right? The wife is able to persuade the husband.
Happy wife, happy life, man.
Absolutely. Like I said, I think in my original the first myth, I think Persephone probably knew that this man was I mean, I have a really hard time thinking that the gods can't see past how people truly are.
Yeah.
And so I think she knew, like even with Sisyphus, that he was going to what he do. He blamed it on his wife. And it's like you told her. Like I have a hard time believing that the gods didn't know that he told her not to do those things. You think they don't know that shit?
And especially because Persephone's for the girls,
He
Persephone's
sold
for the
out his
wives.
wife. He sold
Yeah.
out his wife, which is not how a marriage works, like in a partnership. So I feel like in my own interpretation of that, I feel like that's why his punishment was also so bad because he did cheat death twice, which you can't do. But I also think he did throw his wife under the bus and specifically said to Persephone, my wife is horrible. She didn't leave you a sacrifice.
Yeah.
And wives at that time just had to obey what their husband said. So like she's like, yeah, sure, if that's what you're saying, then
Mm-hmm.
so I like how Persephone is kind of like a main player in both.
She definitely knew about Sisyphus and was like, fine,
Of course.
you're gonna blame your wife who knows that you also have to leave sacrifices to my husband and I.
Yeah.
Okay, play her because I'm sure at one point or another, his wife may probably have gone to Persephone for marriage.
Could have. And then, he also used the phrase of like, well, it's improper because the other widows in the community are gonna follow my wife and they don't know what they're doing, like blaming women that they're incompetent in their own households. And it's like, this woman's a queen. She's trained. She knows what needs to be done.
And therein lies the answer. He's challenging the position of a queen.
Yeah. So when I was reading that, I looked at it from that lens of like, some people might say, well, Persephone, she was really naive and trusting him. No, the gods are really smart. And I'm like, she didn't trust him. She said, oh, yeah, sure. You go up to the mortal realm for 3 days, knowing that her husband was going to get paid in the end on his end of like, this man's going to Tartarus. So we'll just play the long game.
Absolutely. The mortals are playing checkers and the gods are playing chess.
Yeah. He thought he got away with it. Like he was like, I lived a life until I was really old and I died from natural causes. And then, he got sentenced to the judgment of the underworld. And they were like,
They
death.
really said electric chair.
They said, roll a boulder up a hill, bitch. Walk him like a dog. So, I always like to look at it through that lens. It's like, the gods are smarter than this. Like, there ain't no way.
No, no.
No, but very interesting. So, yeah, pride, ego, I'll get you in the end.
Audacity.
All the audacity. I mean, I could never.
You catch me never. Catch me not doing that.
Yeah, if 10 buries me alive in the cemetery, you guys know why I've done something.
Mm-hmm. We got to take it to the extremes now.
We did. Anyway,
Anything you want to add? Any other opinions on these myths? Any other takes you got? Hot takes? Lukewarm takes?
No, I think we said all we needed to say. And we do sell Greek mythology books in our temple. If you guys are interested. I mean, you obviously can get on your own, but we do sell ones that we enjoy because I think the myths are the best way to understand the gods. Like, Hades and Persephone are just not walking around being wrathful all day long. But when you do things to try to trick them or cheat death or do things that are very disrespectful, according to the myths, that's really how their personality is. And I feel like you can see their personalities through the myths. But you really have to like uncover each myth, don't just read it for face value. But we do sell some books in the store around that if you're interested.
Yeah, like read the myth, let it digest, and then I always like putting it in modern terms because I think it
Mm-hmm.
helps me understand, and then placing it into the context of ancient Greece and being like, okay, well, why was this written this way? Why was
Yeah.
the author saying this? Of course, many times the author is a man. So, what is his bias here? What is he coming from? And what really is the underlying meaning? Because, man, every myth has a moral.
Yeah, it's the whole like moral compass of I would say like the religion. Like this is a religious practice. And so we read the myths as kind of like this is the gods and how they're teaching us as humans of like, don't be so prideful.
Mm-mm.
Don't think you're gonna like be 10 steps ahead of me.
I'm going to let you think that, and then I'm going to smack you down in Tartarus.
I'll wait the long game until you die. No
Damn.
thanks.
You know, you think you got it, but man, the gods will outweigh you.
Yeah, the time doesn't exist on their end.
Mm-mm.
Anyway,
Time is but a ripple in eternity.
I want to figure out why Zeus kidnapped that girl. I didn't really go into the whole Agina, her name was.
You want me to look it up now? I'll look it up now.
I just don't want to go into like a super deep dive in it because I know we have to go, but
Yeah, let me just look up Zeus and Gina.
oh, he abducted her, the nymph Agina.
Carried her off in the guise of an eagle. And that's why the island of Agina is named after.
Oh, he was a very beautiful woman and he fell in love with her.
Mm-hmm.
So to escape the wrath of Hera, Zeus transported Agina to an island. Interesting.
Yeah, she gave birth to a son of his, but it really just seems like Zeus found a beautiful nymph, beautiful
Sure.
gal.
Anyway, that's all I have to say. Okay, now I know. I'm like, why was he kidnapping this girl?
Why not? She's probably pretty.
Doesn't mean you get to do that.
Truly. And then along came Zeus.
Yeah. For real. Shout out Zeus. We do respect him here at Six and Bones Temple, but sometimes it's myths. You got to be like, what was going on?
questions
We
because
do have that in the lineup soon.
like your brother's playing the long game and playing chess and not checkers, and you're over there playing, I don't know, blind dates.
He said, I'm king of the gods. I do what I want. Period. All right.
He's over there playing Guess Who. Anywho, with that being said, don't forget to vote on who had it worse, Sisyphus or Persephone. A lot of yeses. Once
Similar
again,
names.
I know. And of course, Theseus and Heracles are involved, as well as Zeus. But, who doesn't love Greek mythology here? But with that being said, don't forget to vote. I believe Chelsea is going to be putting down either comments or a poll after this. So don't forget to vote. And we will be crowning the winner of the first instance of Sticks and Bones versus, because it's Olympic season, everybody.
It
So
is.
with that being said, don't forget to check out Sticks and Bones the store for all of the full moon stuff. Don't forget to check out Chelsea's services. Oh, Chelsea, what do you have coming up on the Ghost Whisper, if you know?
Oh, I have, speaking of the man down under, I have my High Priestess of King Hades episode coming out. So a little left turn on Ghost Whisperer. But I am really going into my journey as a High Priestess to King Hades and talking about, my personal experience with it. He allowed me and actually gave me that idea to film that episode. So I don't know why it was important to film, but I just do as I'm asked. So that's coming out.
Gotcha. And I will be talking about ancient tattoos over on Dirt Diaries. Totally left field. No mythology that
Totally
way.
different. That's
Sorry,
okay.
guys. We're talking about there's some mythological tattoos. We'll be talking about that as well. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, comments, don't forget to email us at sticksandbones.cmc@gmail.com. If you want to come see temples and tombs with me in Egypt, you can go ahead and check that out in the beacons as well. But until next time, stay spooky, and we'll see you guys in a few weeks. Bye.
Bye.